Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another review on the JayBee and Milly channel. I am JayBee, and of course, with me is Milly.
Hi.
We have Sophie
Hey.
and Dan.
Hey,
So today we are going to be reviewing Scooby Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the movie, which is crazy to me that it's 20 years old. It only feels like the other day when we were organizing all the interview guests to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the first live action movie. So to be in this position now is crazy. I am planning on releasing this on a Friday, so our 20th anniversary interview announcement will come at the end of this. So do stay tuned for that. I can say that it's one that's going to have a lot of unique scenes that have never been seen before, concept art, animatics. It's completely crazy. I'm really looking forward to premiering it. It's going to be absolutely wonderful. But without a shadow of a doubt, I mean, I'm used to passing on to you, right? Because you usually direct it, but I'll pass on to you to tell me to direct it here.
Okay, so JB, you're directing this one.
Okay, so we set the scene with Scooby Doo 2. We have the opening titles, as you'd expect, and it is, of course, an amazing score by David Newman. As we have a little pan throughout Coolsville as the credits roll, and we're almost on the POV of the pterodactyl ghost. And what I love about this scene, first and foremost, is that score by David Newman. I think, given that he's such a legend, instantly when people hear his name, I think in terms of intros, instantly people go to Ice Age, the iconic dun 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 dun, and that is good. But I think he tops it here. I think this is probably his finest composition for that opening montage ever. And it's just an absolute treat. But I'll pass on to Dan. What do you think about the intro scene?
yeah, no, I love it. I know normally, unless there's lyrics to the credits, I'm not usually the biggest fan, but I think it really works in this regard. I think it's really cool. And it's really like it gets you into the mood. And I love the way right at the very end of the credits it transitions to the Coolsville Museum. I think it's really cool. It really sets up the film. It really puts you in the mood. It gets a big thumbs up from me.
It is good. It flows perfectly, especially as when the titles come over, is when everything kicks into gear. It just gets me so pumped up because it's like a mystery, and then it's oh, I just can't. What did you think about it, Sophie?
Not gonna lie, I hadn't watched it in a while.
Oh.
So I kind of forgot about it, but as soon as it came on, I was immediately captivated. It's brilliant. Like I wasn't bored and I thought, yeah, we're in for a good movie.
Ooh, I like that we're opening with quite a positive vibe. Now, Millie, the question is, will you keep up the positivity or will you burst it, leaving us all devastated?
I think it's a really good intro. I really like you said, how it sets the scene. You're instantly with one of the villains, being the pterodactyl. There is something about the intro music for the live action movies where I instantly, even watching, because we've got the movie on in the background, kind of on silent, kind of prompt the way through. In my head, I still have the intro music playing for the first movie, and I'm hearing some form of weird laugh in my head as well. That's not even part of this movie, but I still think the second one stands, well
You're
in its
right.
own
It's
right.
difficult for me to watch this one and not compare it to the first one. And I almost feel like it's sometimes to a detriment because I love this movie so much. But I always think like when something overly kiddie happens, I'm like, oh, I do kind of miss the edge of the first one. Like when some of their outfits show up, I'm like, oh, I kind of miss the outfits from the first one. But I do confidently think that when comparing the intro from the second one to the first one, I do think I prefer this second one. Like obviously the Scooby Dooby Doo from the first one's iconic, but just this just feels a lot more cinematic. I wish I could have seen the 2002 movie back on the big screen, but in terms if I could just pick one scene in isolation to have watched on the big screen, I do think it would have been the theatrical audio of this first composition. So I'm
Both
enamored.
movies are different. I think some of what this movie does well then comes up in the next scene. So I think whereas the first movie stands alone really well in its own right, this one is more of a celebration of Scooby. It's almost like, clearly off the back of the last movie, they're celebrating the gang. I love the limo with the Mystery Machine style on it. All the groups of fans are really cool, but also seeing the villains to bring back so many of the originals. It is some nostalgia, some celebration, and I do really like it when they do it. When they did it on Trick or Treat, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. One thing that I think is hilarious about the interim scene is that every single member of Mystery Inc. has their own fan, which makes
Which one are you?
sense. Well, you know what I mean? Like, I can't even begin to hypothesize. But what's interesting to me, right, is when someone is a fan of a group, like, I can't think about an example which is not going to contradict me. But say, for instance, back when Queen was just a band and there was no, oh, this is Freddie Mercury, really, in terms of that sense, you would just be a fan of them. Whereas you'd assume that for them to all have individual fans, they may have had their own solo career at some point, a bit
I
like how there was an Iron Man
disagree.
movie, a Thor movie. But I would be a Daphne fan.
I would completely disagree with you. As somebody who grew up like in the massive One Direction era, everybody had their favorites. Whenever you went to a concert,
Been here
it
before,
wasn't
haven't
like
you?
a One Direction t-shirt. You had your Harry Styles hoodies, your Liam Payne t-shirts. Everybody had their own
I like that.
within the group.
As someone who has never been into the boy band scene, I'll defer to you for that. Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, no, but everyone's just got, and with Scooby Doo, everyone does have a character they lean to a little bit more that resonates with them a little bit better than the rest of
I
the
mean, I
gang.
definitely would be a Daphne fan. I'd like to think I'd more be like the father, a supportive father of those two little
No,
girls,
you would be a creep with a
as
tattoo.
opposed to Daphne Tattoo fan number three. But I mean, though, seriously though, Daphne wouldn't show up here. She
It
would
would be
be.
offensive to you to say number three, JB. You would be the number one ultimate creep. Like, don't worry about that.
That's not a creep. But I suppose the real question is, Sophie, what did you think about the gang meeting all the fans and just the general look of the outside of the museum? And additionally, what fan group would you be in?
Yeah, I really like the scene. Yeah, it's a good vibe. I mean, I really like the vibe more, summery feeling of like the first movie, but for sequel, I think it works really well. Um, I can't believe I forgot about the fans. Like, I watched it again, I was like, oh my God, how did I forget? I thought they were really well done. I love how they all had their niche for the different gangs members, but Daphne, both end of the spectrums, like the cute little girl and then the creepy man. Like, I forgot that part. Both end of the spectrum. I just found that so funny. Like, and then Scooby with the other dogs. That was quite a cute little part. But I think I would be a Daphne fan. However, I'd be in the middle. Like, I wouldn't be a cute little
Um,
girly girl. I wouldn't be a creepy man. I'd be just like in the center.
oh, so a bit like me, really, in that regard. In
The
that.
third group, yeah.
What about you, Dan? What do you think of the whole sequence, and what fan group would you have been a part of?
I absolutely love this scene. I love the Mystery Machine, Limo. I love the gang's outfits. They all look amazing. They're all color corrected. I love the different fan bases. I love the sort of in jokes. Like Shaggy's fans are so clearly supposed to be stoners, and then Velma has like that sort of all female fan base. So I like those like little nods there. In terms of what fan base, I mean, Daphne's my favorite character, but I think in this situation. I'd probably be in Freddie's fan base. I want an ascot. He was giving out ascots, and I would
Oh,
want one. So yeah, that would be where I'd be at. Plus, if it looked like Freddie Prinze Jr., I'd have to.
Mhm.
yeah, see, I didn't even think about that. No one else was giving stuff away, were there?
No.
Oh, that's a shame. That's a shame. But maybe I'd still be on the Daphne side of things. But that is true. And Millie, I don't think I need to ask you this. But what is your thoughts?
So you always say Velma, and I don't like Velma. I've sat here on many, many, many of these and said I don't like Velma.
Yeah, but it's Linda
I'd
Cardellini
say,
film. It's a
based on
different
how the
story.
last movie ended, it's difficult to not be a Daphne fan.
But would you be a Daphne tattoo fan?
No, I'm not you.
You know, speaking to Peter New for like the second interview, I just felt so much synergy because he was a Daphne fan in real life as well. He's a top lad. He is a top lad. I'm just so happy. Just it's good feelings all around. But I think ultimately the highlight or the set piece will be the inside of the museum, which again I just think is absolutely
Do
fantastic.
you have a favorite villain that
What
they bring back here that you see in the museum?
you know what, in execution and how they do it, I'm kind of torn between two. one, which is the minor 49er, just because I'm really not a fan of their look from the series.
Neither am I. They definitely had the best
Like,
step up in terms of if you picture how they looked in the series compared to this movie. They had the best step up.
we literally go from like if Santa Claus was a nonce in the animation to cool zombie type thing, like from Cabin in the Woods. You could just imagine it climbing up from the ground. Oh, it's fantastic. But in terms of the one that really gives me the willies, the 10,000 volt ghost, because I don't know why I'm an absolute wimp when it comes to like static electricity, like even plugging something into the socket when it does that little flash thing. I can't. I'm just all over the place with it. So just the thought of the 10,000 volt ghost is just I can't do it. It's shocking. Um,
I will admit though, seeing I I would never have said the 10,000 volt ghost, but seeing again Trick or Treat when they recreate it there, it gave me nostalgia for this movie, not just the original, but like this movie quite specifically. But I'd say for me it has to be the Black Knight Ghost. I absolutely love them.
love that. I love that. And so I guess putting that out into everyone. Dan, what did you think about the museum set piece and your favorite villain that was either showcased in outfit form or like brought to life in the movie?
Yeah, I love the museum. I love the idea of it. I remember going to see this at the cinema when I'd have been 9, and I absolutely loved that they were recreating all the old villains. I absolutely loved it, and I think at the time I'd literally just watched for the first time the pterodactyl episode, so that felt like weirdly satisfying watching this film. But no, I did. Obviously, one of my favorite episodes from the original show is A Clue for Scooby Doo. So it was nice to see Captain Cutler represented. But I have to agree with the 10,000 volt ghost. I love the original episode, but I always thought the design, I think in animation form, wasn't that spectacular. But watching it in live action, it looks amazing. It's very creepy. It's very eerie. I think they did an absolutely fantastic job. So if I had to pick number one, it would have to be the 10,000 volt ghost.
Mm.
And Sophie?
It's a difficult one. I get this movie's for like nostalgia and the villains, but some have upgrades and some's a bit downgraded. I get with the 10,000 ghost, but I think with Millie to pay homage to like the Black Knight ghost and have like a big scene, like that was beautiful. I love that. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Minor 49 gave me nightmares. He was terrifying, especially after like Scooby like farts back the fire and he's burnt to smithereens, like that scared the hell out of me. But yeah, I think the museum scene was a real nice setup. I'm happy it started there. I think it was a good starting point for the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. And I think, this movie does introduce a couple of other characters, and I want to get this out of the way early because we'll get JB's negativity done. Tell us why you don't like Patrick.
See, because you did this to me last time, and and I hand on heart, I actually could have walked away from the series back then. I don't know why. It must have just been the mindset I was in, because I did go through a bad mindset
Why
period,
don't you
but
like Patrick?
I was ready. I could have quit the series there. I was so wound up, and you can't do this to me
Why
again.
don't you like
Because I'm
Patrick? It's a simple question.
okay. So look, conceptually, I don't like the idea of Patrick in the same way that I don't like the idea of that random guy from the first movie, just because I feel like because of the test screenings, it's aged badly in my mind for this test screening to go out, there'd be an uproar, and then you've got Warner Bros. Executive number one going, James Gunn, make sure when you write the sequel, you need to add in a male love interest for Velma so the test screening, so they know that she isn't gay in this one. And it's like on concept alone, I'm kind of like, you know what? Fine. I don't need her to be one way or another in this movie anyway. But it just seems like because they had to add in a male love interest in the first one to then go and reinforce that in the second one, and it ultimately doesn't really serve the plot beyond, I guess he's another suspect and he's someone we can get close to. It just doesn't leave a great taste in my mouth. I mean, it helps that it's Seth Green, because if it wasn't, I think it would be completely unbearable. They've chosen a great guy to do it, but to me, it's just old-fashioned, think of the children, let's show everyone that Velma's not gay. That's why I'm not really blending with it.
That's the best you've ever articulated that. Normally, you just say some nonsense about how you don't like him or that there wasn't a place for him in the movie. You don't normally articulate it
Well,
that well.
we can rewind the first review, and I think I said something similar. Although it was two versus one in that one, I was getting bullied.
Sophie, what did you think of his character?
I've said it before, apart from Daphne, I'm never one for relationships. So I think the first few times I watched it, I wasn't really into it. However, it's become kind of an iconic scene, part of the movie. I think like JayBee said, with Seth Green being the actor, it does help. Yeah, I accept him. Like I said, I'm not a big relationship in the gang sort of thing, so it is what it is.
And Dan, what about you?
Yeah, I'm pretty much going to echo what JB said. I have seen the James Gunn interview where Velma was supposed to be gay, and then he said they pretty much forced a male love interest in the sequel for her. But I suppose, I, people say it's Seth Green, and obviously I'm a huge Buffy fan, so it was nice to see Buffy and Oz sharing the screen again. And also in Buffy, Oz dates a character who then turns out to be a lesbian. So I don't know, maybe that's just his thing. I don't know. But yeah, and I think obviously it does lead to that sort of setup where Velma has to try and sort of doll herself up when she wears the catsuit, which is the internet's made sure has become one of the most iconic parts of this film. So I suppose in the grand scheme of things, it does work out.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the most referenced moments of the movie. Um so I guess kind of continuing on with the museum scene. So the villains come to life. Is it fair to say that's the next bit?
Well,
Or
yeah,
do you want to
yeah, I'd
continue
say
it?
so. It's we get like some mishaps happen, and
And
then we're in a position where the pterodactyl goes. Like it's like, oh, Rimage is everything, and it's like it's just the costume, and there's that blink scene, which I think is pretty cool, right?
and I think it's also really quite reminiscent of like real life in a way. Like you get celebrities and famous people and the media are there to celebrate in their glory, but as soon as anything goes wrong, everything gets very twisted. And it only takes mere seconds before that's happening here.
Yeah. And again, it's such a charming setting as well. Like, I don't know how much I would pay to go to this museum because we're in a situation where everyone knows how much I love the first movie. But I'm genuinely torn on if I could either go to Spooky Island or this museum. I genuinely don't know which one I would pick. It is just,
I'm surprised at you. You're meant to be like such a hardcore first movie fan, and
I
even
am.
I know I want to go to Spooky Island.
Well, no, because you can find Spooky Island anywhere. All you need to do is find good weather, mini mocktails, and a beach, and some spooky stuff happening.
Okay, so after they finished at the museum, they go back to, I don't know if you want to call it headquarters, the clubhouse. You just called it the what was it? The Mickey Mouse Clubhouse?
Yeah, the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
I just used to refer to it as somewhere I wanted to be. I used to love it.
Yeah, me too. It's very almost like it reminds me of a movie, The Internship, where they go to like Google headquarters. It very much seems like an early 2000s view on what like a futuristic tech company would be with all the kind of Zen chairs, the round sofas, and the flat screens. But I love it so much. It's got such a different vibe, but it fits in. Like, I think the first movie is pure 2000s core, whereas this is kind of like if you imagine what an alternate reality looked like, where the early 2000s was futuristic, if that makes sense. It's almost like an Elseworld, but I'm here for it.
My only complaint is I feel like it's lost a bit of heart. So it looks very like professional and very businessy and very like, wow, the gang have made it and this is like officially what they do now. I just want some flower scatter cushions that match the like flowers on the mystery machine or just something. Do
I
you know what I
think
mean?
in terms of design, I can kind of see it. I'm more getting, maybe you were hinting at this. It seems like the first movie was a YouTuber that I really, really like. I like their gaming videos, I like their vlog content. It was just kind of unapologetically them. Whereas with this one, it's like when that YouTuber then starts like a YouTube Red series or a movie or like a Netflix show. Like it's the same stuff, it's the same people, but it's just very clean and not heartless, but almost clinical in the way that it seems like it's like just more professionally done, which works for some, but I don't know. I do prefer the vibe of the first one.
See, for me, it's kind of like it is almost like there's a big difference between the two. So think about the flashback in the first one where they've got a scrappy and they're just driving along in the mystery machine for the fun of it. Whereas this almost seems like, I don't know, when they're in the mystery machine, it's almost like Ghostbusters. They've got a place to be, they need to get there, and then they're all going to jump out and they're there and it's straight into business. There's no just kind of like fun, light-hearted, like, the teenagers that enjoy solving mysteries together. It is like it's a real business now, I guess.
I think though it works for this movie, given that we then get a sequence where the gang reminisce on the old days, like, oh, do you remember when we didn't have to prove anything to anyone? So it works. It's just a shame that it almost could have done with it's so weird because the first movie was so different that could have had a sequel completely different on its own. And because the sequel is so different, I almost feel like it could have benefited from a Monsters Unleashed style first one that would have factored into this more. Like, it's so weird to say. This one definitely isn't a full sequel to the first one. It's so complicated me saying that
It's
because
almost like it's straight after, but there's been years in between. Like it's straight after, like they're celebrating a mystery they've just done, but it's also years in between as they're so
it just
established
feels so
now.
complicated.
It
Like,
seems to be a big like step up in terms of like I don't know, just everything, like the levels to it, like they've got headquarters and things like this. And then I'm gonna make my last point and then I'm gonna open this up to Sophie and Dan as well because I realize that, right now this is me and JB complaining. But if we're talking about the overall aesthetic of the gang and their headquarters and everything, I genuinely hate the outfits for this movie. Like, I would go that strong. They've never got Velma's outfit wrong before. Like, even with Hayley Kiyoko, they were somewhat there. I really didn't like the neck on her jumper. I don't like how she had a cardigan. When do we ever see Velma with a cardigan? Like, they never mix up Velma's look. She always looks exactly the same. And the one time they've done it, I don't like it. I don't really like Shaggy with the white sleeves underneath.
oh, I love it.
I hate Fred's t-shirt with the numbers on it and stuff. I hate when he's got the white jumper. Like, at least in the first one, they acknowledge like the flares on his trousers and stuff like that. He was like a little bit more like he looked like he was from the right era. And I don't like Daphne's look. I can't tell you why I don't like it. I just don't. JB?
I think you've been a bit unkind, but I will admit, to me, this is a little bit like the reverse of the Melton Pilates movies, where I prefer the outfits in one versus the other. I don't think they get anything wrong with Velma, though. I just think Velma looks like Velma.
Do you
She's
think the neckline's different? The cardigan's
well, I
different?
don't mind. It's just who she is. It's I think it's just such a basic style,
The
and I
Who's Your
think they
Mummy
do it.
outfit is something.
It's something they keep it the right color though, which is good. It's Daphne's outfits I don't really blend with. Like there's a poncho which is kind of odd. Then there's the I don't dig it. I don't, and then there's that weird what is it the jumper with the embroidery on it. Like it's just all of Daphne's ones apart from maybe two I think are pretty
The
bad.
only outfit I do really like, and we have nearly all the pieceworks for it,
Shizzy McCreepy.
it is. That is the one outfit in this movie that I love. Like, it's brilliant. But I feel like we need some positivity, and I'm gonna say based on Dan's expression, he's probably the best one to go to for this positivity.
Yeah, oh God, I feel exactly the opposite on everything. I loved the headquarters. I thought that was a really cool idea, and it made sense to me. Like we saw in the first film, they sort of split up and then they get back together, and now they're like an official business. Like, and again, like we say later on, they do reminisce. They do say, "Oh, back in the day we used to do this for fun. Now it's what we actually do." No, I really liked it. I like that because obviously this was 2004. It feels like that sort of era where it was like everything had to look sort of futuristic, even if it wasn't futuristic, it just had to look that way. Um, and oh God, the outfit. I never make notes for these things. I always just keep a mental note. But the one that I did keep was that I absolutely love the outfits in this film. I will give you, I don't really like Shaggy's white sleeves. That just seemed like they were trying to change it for changing's sake. I don't really get that. And I know what you're saying a little bit about Velma's neckline, but overall, I really liked what Fred and Daphne were wearing. Like, I don't know, like it just seemed like especially in this era where we just came off like the Zombie Island Witch's Ghost sort of era
Oh yeah.
where Shaggy and Velma were sort of always the same, but Fred and Daphne they were changing it up. I don't know, I really liked it. I loved. I know you mentioned the poncho. I actually quite liked that, and I loved when she took it off. Daphne just had a t-shirt with herself on it.
I
I
love
always thought that
that.
was I don't know, I thought it was a really cute
You
little nod.
hated that
Like
last time, but I love
Yeah,
that.
still then.
if anyone was gonna have a t-shirt with themselves on it, I can picture it being
It's
Daphne.
Daphne. I think, like you said as well, comparing it to the Zombie Island era, there's one outfit where she's got like a purple suit jacket on as well that links to that really quite
I
nicely.
like that one.
Sophie, what about you? How did you feel about the headquarters and the look of the gang for the movie?
Yeah, mixed feelings with HQ. I mean, I'd love to be there. It looks really awesome. The scene when Daphne and Van like crawling around like all the little hidey holes, like that
Yeah.
looked really fun. Um, but it feels really dated, like of its era. That's not a bad thing, but compared to the first movie, that's like a timeless classic. Like this movie is set in the early 2000s, and that's like final.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I'd love to be in HQ, but it is dated, but it's not a bad thing, but you can just tell where it's from, the outfits. I hate them. Um, I remember not liking them as much as the first movie. However, watching it again earlier today, yeah, yikes. I don't think Daphne would wear any of them outfits. I do like the poncho for some reason. I don't know why. But Nick, can I just say the last one, oh, I don't even know what to call like she's all in purple, the same colour purple. It was like stuck to her and it was like hideous. Like, oh no. And I didn't like the suede like suit thing. That was awful. I feel like Velma, I mean, I like a real big turtleneck, but I felt like what she was given was more like what's new Scooby Doo vibes. They're a bit chunky and like lower down. I don't know if because it's like what's new era, they're trying to mimic that. Um, I have to say I do like the white sleeves on Shaggy just to give him something because he never gets anything and just have some sort of difference. I'll take it. Wasn't a fan of Fred's outfits. They were better in the first movie, but and the stripy cardigan on Daphne, I don't like that either. Yeah, poor Daphne. I will say her face on a t-shirt, that was brilliant. I mean, I've made a custom Daphne doll and I've done it from like each incarnation. And from that movie, I've done the punch outfit of her t-shirt. Like that's my favorite.
No, that's
I
Um,
really
think I like
but
the
I feel
Daphne
like
one that
talking
you
about
do.
like having your face on your shirt, I feel like it would be Fred though, Fred on Fred, like the book. I feel like he just have his
Fred and
book on his
Fred.
shirt.
quite literally
Like,
Fred on Fred.
yeah.
That is actually really cool. I wish I could do that. That's brilliant. But the one that the Daphne's one that I do like is the one from the start when Shaggy and Scooby come in dressed up like detectives. And then I think, what's the other one that I like? The one where she's got the boots on when she confronts Heather Jasper Howe, just because that's kind of like a revamp of the first movie's outfit. But yeah, overall. And it's bad because we were discussing this. It's the same costume designer for both movies. So I don't know what the hell happened.
Mm. I like how we can rely upon Dan for positivity.
But I do love Shaggy's the part under. I used to do that, like I loved it that much. I actually tried to do I literally went through a stage when I was like 12, 11 or 12, where I would always wear a long sleeve and then put a short sleeve over it. Like that was
Oh,
genuinely my vibe for a whole
that
year.
that was just the time though. Like people did that. Like my brother used to do that. Like
I want to do that now.
he used to do that. He always wore a long sleeve shirt and a short sleeve one over the top.
I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna bring it back. Next time we do a Zoom, I'm rocking it.
Okay. So moving on, they then go to Wickles Manor as the next bit. And I love, love, love the bit where they fall into the ball through the doorstep where they're waiting. That was so good. I almost want that to be a ride somewhere. And I think that's Daphne's kind of moment as well. I like that it was her that managed to get them out and that it was the makeup trick and stuff like that.
Yeah, nowadays it would be called woke and there'd be like so many videos on the internet complaining about it. But this came out before we were that sensitive on the internet and we can just enjoy a good moment for what it is. Um, it's just it's good production design, this Wickles Manor. I think
I am watching this as a different perspective to what I normally do, though.
what perspective?
So you know how not like last time I kind of ripped into you a little bit about not liking Patrick.
Yeah.
Okay. So the way I'm watching it now is Shaggy and Scooby are like adamant that they want to become better people. So after this scene, they then go off and explore and try and find clues. Daphne is still very much continuing on from the last movie, all about empowerment and what she can do. Fred's a little bit more goofy in this one. If something's said that can be misconstrued, it's going to be him that says it. If a trap's messed up, it's going to be him that's done it. I don't think they knew what they wanted with Velma. I don't know. Like, can you see a clear
I
path for her?
can tell you what they wanted ultimately. I'm just not sure if it completely works. So Velma is pretty much there to be um almost like the teacher to the audience at the end, spelling out in no uncertain terms what the message is. Like she isn't so much as a character as such more than a device. Like she's the one to pretty much look at the audience and say, I think you were heroes all along, you just didn't know it. And that's the core, moral of this movie. Like it's like almost like Kung Fu Panda, like you're doing great just as you are. You don't need to change yourself to be a great detective. Just be yourself, which is a good message. It's just the only issue that I'm having with that is they do try and change themselves to become great detectives, and doing that causes, unless I'm misremembering, absolutely no problems. But it does in fact get them to the Faux Ghost, which gets them to the next place, which gets them to the next place. Like being themselves probably would have worked, but also not being themselves worked as well. I think a mistake they made is not giving them that. I suppose they do make an error when they're like when they unleash the monsters and they're like, we're the great detectives. But to me, that is the type of Shaggy and Scooby mishap that they talk about, like when they plowed into the snow ghost. It wasn't them being different. It just seemed like, mate, Shaggy and Scooby did something goofy.
And to me, it's weird that it's coming from Velma, who arguably is the most different in this one. Like, she's normally intelligent, level-headed, and here it's like the second there's a guy in the room, she doesn't have a clue what she's doing, and she's confused because she thinks it's this person or that he's doing like something that's like, I don't know, like malicious behind her back or like it. She is the most unlike herself out of anyone in this. But I guess kind of, I don't know, moving this to a point that's, I guess, a bit more of an opinion piece. What do you see as the next part, JB?
What do you mean, the next four?
So, next point.
So what, we've just come back from the Faux Ghost, and then
We've
isn't
not
this
got to the Fergus yet, have we? We're at Wickles Manor.
well, we're at Mr. Winkle's manor?
What did I
Oh,
guess kind
there's a
of my
fight
next
with the Black
question for
Knight.
Sophie and Dan is what did you think to the characterizations at this point? So I think this is like, while we're in Wickles Manor, Shaggy and Scooby find a clue. Daphne still gets that kind of empowerment moment first with the makeup, then taking on the Black Knight ghost. I guess Sophie, starting with you.
Yeah, I do like Daphne. Again with the shirt with her face on the shirt, that is everything. I love how Velma's there with the big book. Yeah, and she's trying to solve how to do it while Daphne's like getting all action, and I love an action scene, and she's brilliant. I think the Black Knight is quite a few comical parts of him, which I adore. So yeah, I like that scene a lot.
And Dan?
Yeah, I actually really love the Wickles Manor scene. I love the fact that it was Mr. Wickles. Obviously, he is the OG villain, the very first ever villain. So that was pretty cool. And I thought the sequence was really good. As we've said, Fred's a bit goofier in this film, but I like that sort of what's new sort of era. Shaggy and Scooby, yeah, them looking for clues and stuff. It didn't bother me so much. It's not the greatest plot line for them. I don't know. I kind of was getting like 80s vibes, like Boo's Brothers and stuff, where they were literally without the gang. Velma, yeah, she's fine. Like you say, her main role in this is Patrick. So like in this sort of sequence, he's not here, so she kind of just is there. But Daphne, this feels, I think, going from the first film, Daphne is the most consistent. This definitely feels like the Daphne that was set up towards the end of the last film, where she was like a fighter. But at the same time, I love her like to get out of that dome thing they trapped in at the beginning. She uses her makeup. That felt like What's New Daphne, where she would just use bits and pieces that she had. Like it felt like something Daphne would have. I like the fight with the Black Knight Ghost. I thought that was pretty cool. The only, I don't know, I understand, I don't know. The only bit I didn't really like was that she defeated him by like kicking him in the crotch, and he acted like it hurt. I'm like, would this reanimate ghost really feel pain there? I didn't really understand that, but I was like, yeah, okay, I'll roll with it. But it was nice to see Daphne fight again. I thought that was such a cool little nod to our fight in the first film. So yeah, I like the characterization in this. Apart from Velma, it's like yeah, like we say, Velma's just kind of all over the place in this film, to be fair.
Mm.
That is such a weird thing, actually. Now that I've mentioned, like now that you mentioned, I'm like deeping it. Was Velma researching weaknesses for that specific monster, or like the Black Knight Ghost, like or just the randomonium monsters in general? In which case, finding that weakness, you would assume from that point that the gang would just go around kicking these monsters in the balls. But in reality, they never even bring that up again unless. Well, I suppose they do clip the jumpers to the Black Knight Ghost's under area, but I don't know. Yeah, that is a weird one.
It is.
Because the zombies are right there for the taking and they never once go for it. So maybe that's why Scooby pulled his pants down at the end, to like, get rid of all the armor.
So while at Wickles Manor, Shaggy and Scooby find a clue about going to the Faux Ghost. So once they're back at HQ, they try to sneak off. And then, do we get the Who's Your Mummy sequence first, or is it then the Faux Ghost?
It's the Who's Your Mummy sequence because the gang pretend to have rabies and Patrick rocks up. And then yeah, there's the Who's Your Mummy scene, which is interesting. It's definitely become a cultural main staple in people of a certain generation, because you always have the comments of, oh, this was my this awakening or that awakening. And clearly this scene was that for many in the 2000s. Wasn't mine, but hey, if it's your jam, respect. I think it was a fun sequence. It didn't just show Linda Cardellini in latex to be gratuitous. I mean, it kind of does, but overall, what you can assume from it is it's a scene which shows Daphne's influence on Velma and Daphne being supportive of her wanting to pursue this relationship. So I buy it from that perspective.
It's terrible advice
What?
to wear the outfit, act differently. It's terrible advice.
I don't know. A latex
That
suit would
pants
work on me.
doesn't work on Patrick.
Does it
You
not?
said that it's
Well,
some people's awakening. For me, it was my awakening of secondhand embarrassment. Like, I felt so embarrassed for her. The way she can't
why
walk,
does it not work
the
on
way the
Patrick?
noise it makes when she tries to sit down. Like,
Yeah, but some
I was
people like that.
cringing. I was in so much pain watching it.
All I'm saying is if Patrick wasn't derailed by having his place of business completely decimated, I don't think you could definitively say she would have had an unsuccessful night.
100% would have.
Well, you don't know that
You
because
could tell that he felt very awkward. Like,
yeah.
I'm sure Daphne was trying to be sweet, but it was terrible advice.
Well, I don't know who gave her the "Who's your mummy" line. Was that one from Daphne? I wouldn't
You've
imagine
got to
so.
assume.
Oh well. It's something. She's trying.
Sophie, what was your take on this scene?
Um, yeah, I agree with both. I think it is definitely Daphne's influence. But instead of, I feel like if Daphne had a friend on her level, she'd pull it off. But because it's Velma, like Velma is uncomfortable with the whole situation. I do think it's probably Velma said that line, like, "Who's your mummy?" I think trying to think it would work, but just misfired completely. I just loved how Fred was there. Like, the poor guy, like, he must be just traumatized. Like, it's Fred. He doesn't know what to do. He's just there. And then Pressure was like, what? And I think the thing that got me was when they were getting into the van, when they were walking to the van, and when Velma got in the van squeaking away. Yeah, but
Oh, I did feel
um,
so much pain watching it.
it's very uncomfortable. Like it's cringy. Like it's a problem. Like it's just not Velma. I like to think, like Legend of the Vampire when they like do like dress up for the band or whatever. Daphne's very supportive and actually trying to help her, whereas like she just kind of like throws Velma under the bus in this one. But it is like a really iconic scene. So for that, yeah, well done.
It is
Oh
on
gosh.
theme though, really, when you think about it. Like Velma is trying to be someone that she isn't to get approval of Patrick. The gang are trying to be who they're not to get the approval of the gang. Like I just wish that it was tied together a little bit neater, which
Dan,
I'm surprised.
what did you think to the scene?
Yeah, well, I definitely agree. It is iconic, and not even just in retrospect. Like as I say, I'm old enough to remember when this film first came out, and back in that time, we had to actually watch adverts and we watched TV. And for some reason, I remember the TV spots for this film. For some reason, they must have really enjoyed this scene because I remember seeing the "Who's Your Mommy" clip so many times. Like every TV spot seemed to include that, like her in our outfit. So I don't know, maybe they thought that would get more of the audience in. But I really like it. It helped towards the whole point of the film is that one size doesn't fit all. Just because what works for Daphne gets her a man doesn't mean that for Velma it's the same. Patrick liked her for who she was. I thought that was a sweet message. But it was funny. I loved Freddie's face, like after she says the line, and like he's just sort of he has to act like it's normal. He just sort of like shrugs it off and laughs, but you can tell he's feeling awkward. It does. I've always wondered though, why did they have that catsuit just lying around? Like it's orange, so it's clearly meant for Velma. Like, did Daphne just have it at hand? Like she was waiting for this moment, so she's always had it. And also, Velma's hair goes from really short to obviously Linda Cardellini's long hair, and it makes me wonder. Obviously, we know in real life she was wearing a wig, but it makes me wonder how Daphne got Velma's hair like that. So it raises a lot of questions. But no, it's a funny sequence. I love when Daphne sort of does like the pout and then Velma tries to mimic it. It just looks horrific. I think it's a really funny sequence.
It is really
It's
funny.
aged well as well, because like mummy's the thing, isn't it? Like mummy is the new internet meme word.
How do I feel like you're about to get yourself in
No,
trouble?
that you see that online, like Taylor Swift is mummy.
Mother, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, like mother is mothering. Like, so I
Yeah.
think it's age well. I don't know how common it was back then to refer to an attractive woman as mum or mummy or mother. So it's aged well. James Gunn's definitely proved himself to be a future thinking guy yet again. But it's a decent sequence. It's actually really funny that they used it for the TV spots, though. I didn't know that. I like that a lot. That's funny.
Oh gosh. Okay, and then we get on to what I think is my favorite scene of the entire movie, which is the Faux Ghost one. I really like that. Although when they're waiting outside, what is the brown coat they give to Shaggy? Why has he got that brown coat? I don't like it at all. But his outfit in the Faux Ghost, I absolutely love that. I think what they managed to do getting Scooby to dance and how that looked was amazing. For Neil Fanning to actually be there in the scene, amazing. The song, amazing. Like, I don't think I've got anything I don't like about it.
What's crazy to me is that we've got Mystery Inc. Whack-A-Mole, Mystery Inc. Dart. It's like, what do the urinals look like? Like, you better think about.
Where
Like,
does your brain go? Quite literally the toilet.
but they must come on. Don't tell me that in that place they don't have like a picture of Fred like above the loos for like. Oh, come on.
Moving swiftly.
That's a deleted. If that isn't a James Gunn deleted scene,
Dan,
what's
what
this
do
all
you
been
think to this
for?
scene?
Yeah, I actually really loved this scene. I think it was such a clever idea, to have all the villains just in this one place together. That feels like something like I don't know, it feels like something we should have seen before, but I can't even think of any examples other than maybe I'm blanking on what that Halloween film was called, where there's that pub with all the old
Oh,
ghosts
I
in.
was thinking Once Upon a Halloween. What's the
I was
No,
thinking of what was I thinking of? Candles?
Goblin King, wasn't it? Where
Goblin
they had
King, yeah,
like the roller coaster and the creeper.
yeah, yeah. That's what I was thinking. Goblin King. It reminds me very much of that, but it also feels a bit like I'm sure there's an episode of Doctor Who where they're going to like an old bar and there's like loads of the different characters from before. And I think it's a good idea. Yeah, I thought it was a really funny sequence. The one thing I liked, you mentioned the whack-a-mole, and the pictures they use of the gang were pictures from the first film. I thought that was a cute little nod. And my only thing was, obviously, it's really cool. They mentioned villains from the original show, and one of them's Witch McCoy, Aggie Wilkins. But the person, like the look of Aggie Wilkins, I was like, that's nothing like the cartoon. Could they not have just made it look a little bit like her from the cartoon? But other than that, it was a cute nod. It had a lot of different things, and I just thought it was a funny sequence. I love when they're dancing and um Scooby's disguise comes off, and that's how they discover them. I thought that was really cool.
The ages were a bit weird, I guess, touching on that witch theme, because Old Man Wickles, unless I'm wrong, because I'm not the Scooby expert, but he isn't Old Man Wickles in the series, is he? He's just Mr. Wickles, but he
Yeah.
is Old Man Wickles because we assume that it's almost like that took place in real time. So he was Mr. Wickles in 69, and now in 2004, he is Old Man Wickles. But then that's kind of like, I know that there's going to be, like, Mr. Reincar's still active. But have they been going since 69 to actual 2004? If so, I don't know. It's just weird. That aspect was a bit weird to me.
And Sophie, what did you think to the scene?
Yeah, a very clever idea. I love all the villains. I love their hatred for the gang. I love when Scooby and Shaggy walking in disguise and they get on the sides of the villains and they're having a real like pally talk with each other and like get into the nitty-gritty. Yeah, like the whack-a-mole, like yeah, it was brilliant. They are really scary, like big like faces of the gang, which I thought was funny. Um, but yeah, I love how they got on Pally and they started talking, and if they mentioned Mystery Inc., like they'd all just like snap and like don't mention their names. How could you, sort of thing. I thought that was funny. Go back to Old Man Wickles. Yeah, I will say probably because he did look a lot older than obviously in this movie than in the episode, and it doesn't look like there was like a shift in time, which I kind of like that. And yeah, the outfits of Shaggy and Scooby, perfect. They were brilliant. I love them.
They were, and I think then we cut back to the museum. Am I right in saying JB? So I think again, there's been like the second robbery there where even more of the costumes have disappeared. Um, Freddie Prinze Jr.'s then got that line where he says, "I think Carswell sucks," which for me is about as iconic as the Linda Cardellini line, but I think that's just because I try and disassociate from that scene.
Yeah, and it also humanizes Patrick a little bit because we clearly see that he's upset. And I just can't get over this, you know. How do you add in a character just to reassure people that Velma's not gay? And the message of the movie is it's okay to be yourself. I just can't. The more I think about it, the more I want to die. So you need to distract me. Come on. Come on, distract me from
Okay,
this.
so what happens after? And so they all leave, and I believe isn't this where they decide they need to go somewhere that they can't be tracked? So this is when they go to the old clubhouse,
Oh yeah, they have to
I
go
think.
off the grid because the I think Causeville sucks thing that comes into the forefront. Like that gets not leaked on the internet. Heather Jasper Howe just reports it in a dishonest way, which I think is
Hmm.
interesting.
It's also around this time as well that Shaggy and Scooby see Patrick outside the Faux Ghost, so they start to question him as well, which I like that they plant that seed there. I remember as a child picking up on it and being like, "Oh, maybe it was him." So yeah, I do like it when it's not quite as obvious as some Scoobies who it is. So I think we're now kind of coming up to, is it like the first they then go back to, is it Wickles Manor again? And so they set up the mining scene?
That's not how Wickles Manor. They
Where's
go
that?
to I don't know what the location's called, but in real life it's like the Britannica mines, and we see
Hmm.
Wickles pitching his business plan to the evil, ugly, hideous henchmen or whatever Fresh calls them. Which again, it's kind of just a side plot. It just subverts your expectations. Like this supposedly villainous guy, he's just making some slimy business proposition. Um,
But
Again, it's
this
just a
leads
bit
up
of
to
funny.
another iconic scene, and I think this movie has maybe more of them than any other Scooby movie because then we get when Shaggy and Scooby have the potions.
Yeah, the Roshan. Which I mean, let's open the floor because I've seen two narratives online with this. The one that it's incredibly fitting for the 1969 series, in that quite often Shaggy and Scooby would get themselves in weird, wacky side tangents. Or two, maybe that it delves into a bit too much of the supernatural. So, Sophie, where does this potion scene kind of sit with you?
I think it's a fun scene. I don't. It's iconic. Personally, I don't care for it, but I think now because it's become a thing, it's iconic. Like I know it from that movie. It's fun. Um, I do find it quite funny. I kind of forgot that the gang kind of caught them like halfway, like at the end, and I like how Scooby was Taz, and like I think we've mentioned it before, like the Funko Pop, like
Yeah.
recently how they combined the two. That was fun. No, not Daphne, Shaggy turning into a woman's body. That was brilliant. Like comedy gold. Yeah, I just. It's a fun, iconic scene. If it wasn't in it, I wouldn't miss it, but it is what it is.
Mm.
I love that. I love that. And Dan, what do you think about the potion scene?
Yeah, I'd say it's similar to Sophie, to be honest. It's a fun sequence, but it's not, if it wasn't there, I wouldn't be like, oh, we need the potion sequence. It was a nice nod to sort of what would happen in like Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? But to be fair, even as a kid, I was never the biggest fan of those scenes. Like I think it's in a clue for Scooby-Doo where they're reading through and like Scooby turns into a frog or something. I was never a fan of those scenes. And I know you mentioned Scooby turns into Taz, but I do know apparently the original plan was he was supposed to turn into the cartoon Scooby, and they went against that idea. I wish they'd stuck to that. I would have liked if he turned into the cartoon version of Scooby, but apparently they didn't want to draw comparisons between the cartoon Scooby and the live action Scooby, but I think it would have been a cool nod. It's a shame they didn't go down that route.
Mm.
Hmm.
It would have been fun.
I wonder if they would have got Frank Welker to do that as well. That would have been a nice cameo. There's a lot like they only just like, I just need to one of these days I need to find a way to review this movie without thinking about the first one because it's connections to that one that I just keep thinking about, like the Faux Ghost. I wish we could have got like Old Man Smithers in the Faux Ghost, or even just like a hint at a Scrappy redemption arc. We could have had Scrappy in the Faux Ghost, just the Luna Ghost costume in the museum, and now we get to the potion
Okay.
transformation scene. And I'm like, again, there's some stuff that they could have connected to, like the original Scooby-Doo cartoons. Oh, I don't know. I guess a lot of this movie is already nostalgia bait, or just very nostalgic as it is. But I just think that it does confuse me a bit that this is so disconnected from anything else in the Scooby-Doo universe, including the first movie.
Mm.
Like, I know that what NerdSync always says, this one works better as the first movie, and the second one, well, the first one worked better as the second one. And I find it difficult to disagree with that completely, but even then, watching them both side by side, it only makes sense because the second one has the stakes of, oh, the first one was at home, now we're gonna go away. Like, yeah, so many other things like Home Alone 1 was at home, Home Alone 2, now they're traveling. It only makes sense to me really from that perspective, because as it is, none of them are particularly connected.
Mm.
You know, it's a shame. I can find more headcanon connections with um the mystery begins. Like you could have, oh, the janitor was so annoyed at Shaggy that eventually he became minor 49er. Like I can see more connections in that than in the first two of these, but I'm ranting. I'm raving.
So down in the basement where they get the potions, we then get the monster hive, is it, JB?
Yeah.
And I think seeing the monsters come to life here is genuinely, it used to be like nightmare fuel. I think, like Sophie said with the Minor 49er, there's some that just are so. It gives another level to it. Like when you think of Captain Cutler, you don't think of this Captain Cutler as a child. This is really like the you've grown up and Scooby's grown up with you moment for me anyway.
I guess opening up to the room, right? Sion's half as minor 49 is pretty much the last man standing as far as actors that would go on to portray these monsters versus CGI. Of course, there's the zombie, but there was the sequence that we unearthed on the channel, which would have featured so many of the other monsters. Is there a monster that was showcased in the museum or that you're aware of through the footage that you wish was included in this lineup? I'll start with Dan.
Yeah, I must admit, whenever I watch this film, I know obviously they couldn't include every villain, but I've read a few things because I think they do show there's obviously the pirate ship, but I don't think they show Captain Redbeard at all. That seems to be a shame. But I do know there was definitely the ghost clown costume. I think it was a real that I think because I think clowns in general are pretty creepy. And I think one of the I don't know which witch, but there was a witch costume as well. It's a shame we never got to see one of them. I think there was because I think it might have been the original witch because we do see the zombie, but I think it is a shame, or maybe it was Witch McCoy because we saw the real life version of her. But I think it was a shame that we didn't see more iconic characters like that. I'd have loved to see the clown and one of the witches.
And Sophie?
I think it's definitely the ghost clown. I'm really nitpicky here. Um, I mean, I can't blame them because it's the same as the original. There's a lot of green villains. I think different colours, and I think the ghost carrying a bit of red. Um, yeah, it just felt a bit flat with all the green, and there's a bit of blue, and I just think a few more colours. I mean, especially paying homage to like the original Scooby, there were like a lot more colours. I know quite a lot of villains were green, but I think ghost clown like the upgrade to minor 49er, I mean, a clown, that would have been, yeah, nightmare fuel to the max.
I like that a lot. I like that. I wish that they could make this, but with the hindsight of today's technology, because I think so many of us would have been disregarded for that reason. Like, this was I don't think this was ever in consideration. I've never seen any footage from it, but the idea of the space kook in this setting would be funny. Like, just imagining like laser guns going off and even just spaceships flying above Coolsville. Oh, yeah. I like the sound of that. But the ghost car.
There's a lot they could have done, like the Headless Horseman as well, but then they do put the Black Knight Ghost on a horse in the end, so it's kind of like makes up for that a little bit. So, what's the name of the thing they steal? They're in the hive.
It's just the control panel, isn't
They
it?
take the control
The
panel.
frisbee.
They then go to leave the mine, and then this is where they have their first, I want to say, real encounter with the villains. You get that scene that JayBee, you always said you wanted to create where they slide down the hill on the dustbin lids. We then get I think the first interaction with the human world as well, of that big pirate ship flying over, which I used to absolutely love that
My
scene.
criticism is we don't get more of that. Like, the movie is called Monsters Unleashed, and looking at the timestamp here, the monsters only really got unleashed in the 56-minute mark in a 1.5 hour movie. And the only scene of them getting fully unleashed, I want to say, is that ghost clown by the cars. And obviously, from concept art, we know that monsters used to like, monsters were originally going to be like running through the cars. Eventually, it's just the tar monster. But that to me is what it means for stuff to be unleashed. Like, what was in the realm of Scooby is now in the real world. But ultimately, now at this point, they're just confined to either one-on-one interactions with the gang or in isolated spots where they couldn't do any harm to anyone that isn't the gang.
Mm.
So that would be my only criticism. Like if they had the budget or whatever, just more scenes of the monsters causing havoc in the real world and what a 10,000 volt ghost could do to a city. Like I'm thinking about Electro from Amazing Spider-Man 2 causing power outages. Like stuff like that I think would have just been a lot better from my perspective in terms
Mm.
of raising the stakes of it.
The one villain for me that always really raised the stakes with this, though, is the tar monster, because there isn't any limit to the size that they can get to. Like, if you see them here, they are the height of 20 cars. They are spanning across the entire road. To me, they are one of the most creative villains in this as to kind of like capacity they can get to and things like that. But as we said, this is the time where the gang need to escape the city, go out to one of their old kind of HQs, I guess, their old treat like clubhouse things. And this is where we see, I think, the most characterization from them, or a little bit of just backstory, which I really liked.
Yeah,
Don't they all have their own unique areas in this as well?
they do really. If I could change the world and do things with the benefit of hindsight, I would have. I don't know how the ages would have blended, but I wish we could have got like Kate Middleton, Nick Pilatus for that flashback scene. That just would have been crazy. Or it would have been confusing with Haley Kiyoko because I don't think she could age into Linda Cardellini unless I'm mistaken. But still, the idea
It's
of
a bit of a
that.
stretch from Amel to Prinze as well.
I mean, they're both attractive. It's just a different type. Like one's like hunky gym lad that maybe you'd go on the treadmill with. You'd ask him to spot you, and then you kind of eyes meet, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, do I like guys? Maybe I do." And Prince is kind of like you kind of meet him. He's probably got a guitar, and you're like, "Oh, I like the way he does that." So they're different flavors, but
I don't see Prinze and think, oh yes, guitar.
no, you don't. It's just the
No,
long hair in this movie. He's like one of the Disney boy band guys. And all I'm saying is, if I was at the gym
I
with
didn't
Robbie
think he was going
Amell
for the Disney boy band look,
and he could
JB.
spot me, eventually eyes could meet, and who knows? Who knows?
Okay, so whilst at the clubhouse, they've got enough from like back in the day and they reminisce on old memories, but they find enough things to be able to reroute the control panel to make all the villains go away again. So they do that, they get this really nice little montage, and then I almost want to say like Cabin in the Woods-esque. Shaggy and Scooby are near a lake, the villain comes out, and it's like, oh my gosh, we need to go. So that leads to a really good scene as well. I really like, isn't this where like the pterodactyl ghost tries to like drag them out of the mystery machine?
Which, by the way, was one of the most fun levels to play in the Scooby Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed game. I was addicted to those, both the Game Boy Advance version and the PC ROM version. I think I probably put more hours into those games than I did watching the whole movies combined, the second one at least. Oh, if we could ever find a PC that could the disc thing, and if we could get that game, oh man, you wouldn't see me again.
See, I never played this game.
Really?
Really.
Well, we can play it together. We'll make that. We'll do like a couple's let's play.
So they then get to back to where the hive is, but this is where they take on all the villains. So there's some really nice sequences here. I guess to name a couple, just how Fred and Daphne each take on an individual villain, but then end up teaming up together at the end. And I know, Sophie, you always like the most between them two. I personally thought it was a nice moment, but also Velma showing a bit more emotion as well, saying that she always wished she could be more like Shaggy and Scooby. So I guess just to open it up in terms of, the villains they take on here and the relationships, what did you all think, JB?
I think again, it shows a lot of thematic similarities. Like Fred is trying to appeal to the Black Knight ghost in a child because again, Fred's been putting on a bit of a macho facade when in actual fact he is again another way, which is so common for all the members of Mystery Inc. It does just feel though like this is maybe like draft two or three, and just one more draft would have put all those themes together, but it's nice. I think the bike in itself is a little bit goofy. Like it's cool, technically. It's just I don't know. It just kind of makes me laugh. But yeah, overall, not bad. I don't know why Daphne decided to karate chop pure electricity. I guess that's just confidence, but yeah, it's fun.
Dan, what did you think about this scene?
Yeah, I like it. I like how each of the gang gets a little time to shine. I think it is random that Fred and the Black Knight decide to joust with each other, but I liked how Fred puts on the ascot. That was a cute little nod. And I did like the little moment between Daphne and Fred. I thought that was lovely. And yeah, I liked how Velma and Shaggy sort of had a moment, like just as a friendship moment. I thought it was really cute how they just, how she reassures them. Where she's like, "Oh, I've always wanted to be more like you," and I think it's just one of those seems very realistic. Like we always want, something different, or we always look at someone else's life and think, oh, I want to be more like them. And then you find out that they actually want to be more like someone else. So I thought that was cute. It was nice, obviously, for the child audience to see. But yeah, I liked it. I liked how they took on the villains. And obviously, I thought it was a nice way to sort of get towards the conclusion. So yeah, I liked it.
Definitely. And Sophie?
Yeah, I like the moment between Velma and Shaggy. I know it's a bit random, but Fred and the Black Knight and the jousting, I feel like that was Fred all over, like full macho moment. I found it really funny. I found it a bit random with Daphne and the 10,000-watt ghost, though I liked how they combined um when they both got like knocked out by the villains and they came together for Daphne to take down both at the same time. I thought that was quite a nice move, especially I just can't go over the randomness of like the 10,000-watt ghost. Is there what was with Daphne's puffer jacket, like the outfit? And then when she got electrocuted, like the frizzy hair, like I understand that as what would happen, but Daphne, no, it was a shame. But no, I do like how they teamed up, Daphne and Fred, to take them down. And what was it like with the cables? Like they're kind of like saying it in like code, so the villains didn't understand, and they kind of like got each other, and I thought it was really cute.
Yeah. And I must say, when they get inside, so for me, I mean, skipping over a couple of bits here, there is the scene with Patrick where he gets taken away. There's the cotton candy monster as well, which I love how Shaggy and Scooby get that one because it is so them, like finally something they don't need to be scared of. I always used to really like the Scooby snack monster as well because it's like this is one that they would never be afraid of. They can literally eat the thing, and they did, which to me is really amusing. But I remember the bit where they all get inside and it is the five of them against the tar monster and the other ones running as well. Like I remember watching that and being terrified. Like you always know the gang are going to be okay in the end, but the first time I saw this, I didn't know that the way that the tar's like covering them all. Um, but then I know like people talk about like the most empowering moments they had and stuff like that. I'm sure mine came from Scooby when he was surfing along with the fire extinguisher. I remember that so clearly. Like, I honestly think that's close to being one of my, I'm gonna say at least top five Scooby moments.
Yeah, it definitely is. So yeah, like I said, I love the cotton candy glob appearing because again, Monsters Unleashed, it does just even though this is really the only instance of it happening, besides you, even though Captain Cutler is born in the monster hive, he then pops up in the water. But just the cotton candy glob appearing in a room, you just get the vibe that stuff really has broken loose. Like they could go into one room and they could find Iron Face. They could go into another room and they could find like the Willow, like anything is possible because they've all been unleashed. And so for all this is the only instance of that happening, like a curveball where, oh, we didn't see this one be born, but here it is. I think it was a great scene. I just wish that there was more of it. I think what would have been great is for Chickenstein to have made an appearance to pay off that line at the start of, oh, ridiculous. Remember when he tried to pluck us? And then they could have called back to that in this scene, like, oh, you're right, this isn't so ridiculous, like or something like that. Ugh. But yeah, I love it. I love the scene so much.
No, me too. Sophie, what about you? Do you remember the first time you saw that scene?
I love that they used a tar monster. I love that episode. It's quite like an I feel like he's like the least like you wouldn't think of him as being really intimidating and like taking over the gang and like ending them. But like especially in the scene with like just when they're in the public, I think like the fact that just with tar and it could literally devour the whole of Coolsville, I thought was really clever. Um the scene in some parts was really dramatic and then it was kind of like comedy dramatic, like the gang's acting. I find that quite funny, but overall it was quite dramatic. And I think with Scooby, it's like, yeah, the fire extinguisher, it's a great scene, iconic. Like it's really like the music gets going and it's a vibe. It's like, yes, Scooby.
I think one thing I really like about it as well, it almost reminds me of Sarah Ravencroft's spell book, you know, when the tree's trying to get at them and then a branch lifts one of them up in the air, and then the tar monster lifts one of them up in the air and stuff like that. Like there was just a lot of parallels for me with that. Dan, what about you? Do you remember the first time you saw this scene?
Yeah, I absolutely love this entire conclusion. I remember the first time I saw the cotton candy monster thing. I remember thinking, that there must have been an actual episode of the Cotton Candy Monster that I just hadn't seen. Obviously, now I know there wasn't. I don't know, maybe if it was done now, they could do the Scooby Snacks monster from What's New. But yeah, I can't remember. I think when we did a Witch's Ghost review, I mentioned the fact that the sort of after the Witch's Ghost bit that you mentioned, where they're all throwing the book at each other, they also did it in this film where they're throwing the thing to each other, and then they also do it in the final episode of Mystery Incorporated. Scooby in this film that saves the day. I did like him with the fire extinguisher. And like I say, it's nice to see the gang all helping each other. And then Scooby at the very end, like where he goes towards the tar monster with the eye and everything, and he just, I don't know how that would work with the fire extinguisher and tar, but it looks really cool. I love how he's using it, like sort of turns to ice. I think it's a really cool sequence. It looks amazing.
And who knew the words Scooby Dooby Doo could be so impactful?
Yeah, that's
Like
like
just the
Iron Man.
gravity they have to them at the end of this is amazing.
It's just iconic. It is iconic. And it saves the day, ultimately. And I like that a lot. I think that's such a good conclusion to that whole saga. Because I don't feel like anyone gets knifed or anything. Like they don't pull out some magic from nowhere. Like it is genuinely a nice moment where they do get defeated, which is ultimately, I think, a good thing. There's always comparisons to this stupid evil mask figure looking like the unknown from that Wonka debacle that happened recently. And literally, when we posted up the Inkworks card, everyone's like, "Ha, let's be real. This guy walks so that the unknown could run." And just looking at him in this, I just can't get that out of my head. Like, it's just hilarious.
We then get the unmasking. So Heather Jasper Howe and Ned, which I personally didn't see, but the double unmasking where you then have Jonathan Jacobo did. I think that bit where Velma says the body was never found, things like that, rang a few bells that was like, oh, okay, I see that. Do you pick
Yeah.
up on it? You seem to pull a face when I said it.
It's just in essence, I'm not a great fan of all this switcheroo where it's a humanoid mask. It just gets so icky. Like it's weird seeing it in animation and buying into that. Like when it was with the two skinny dudes, or when Dick Dastardly was Simon Cowell, who was really Dick Dastardly, and so it is just a bit jarring imagining this guy going around looking like Alicia Silverstone. Like, but it is what it is. I don't need to believe it to be entertained by it.
That's fair. Sophie, what about you? Did you expect the unmasking?
I can't remember the first time I watched it. Yeah, I think it was a nice full circle moment. I think who I felt sorry for was Ned. When Fred thought he was wearing a mask and started yanking on him, the poor guy. That was such a Fred move. But yeah, I thought apart from Daphne's outfit, yeah, it was a nice ending.
And Dan, what about you?
Yeah, so well, first of all, Heather Jasper Howe, I absolutely love Alicia Silverstone. I've literally recently just rewatched Clueless and Vamps, so it's nice to see her in this film. I do hate the human masks. I hated it in both Scoob and Legend of the Vampire. I hate it. But I suppose in this film, I do think it looks ridiculous when they're just about to pull the mask off and her face suddenly looks like a mask when it didn't for the entire film. But it's a nice nod to sort of the original show where they did that a few times. I will say though, like I say, before I saw this film at the cinema, I'd literally just watched the pterodactyl episode. And watching this film, I felt so gaslit being like, when they kept on going about Jonathan Jacobo and creating monsters and stuff, I remember thinking, I thought it was about some flying competition where it was like stealing music. I thought I must have completely misremembered the episode. I remember thinking, I can't believe I didn't remember him creating monsters. So, but yeah, no, obviously that didn't happen in the original show. But it being Jonathan Jacobo, I can't remember if I foresaw that coming, but yeah, it kind of makes sense. It's a suitable conclusion to the film.
Mm. And then I think, there's just the general wrapping things up. There's a moment between Patrick and Velma, Fred and Daphne. But I guess that's the movie. So other than the really good scene at the Faux Ghost in the credits and them removing JB's post
Oh no, don't
credits
even. The
scene.
YouTube movies version, they didn't tell me the Game Boy Advance Scooby Doo code, and I think that's worth me getting a refund as it is. Like that's just historical erasure. I don't like it.
But yeah, so that's the movie. So JB, as always, we start with you. For you, is this one a smash or a pass?
It's a smash. A pretty clear smash. I think it's iconic. I think it's gorgeous. I'm gonna watch this another 1,000 times before I pass on at least. Again, though, my only complaint is I just always watch this one comparing it to the 1st one. And in literally every single regard, besides maybe the opening music sequence, I think the first one does everything this one does, but better. So I do like this one a lot. It's just I would only really watch it for stuff like an anniversary, or if I'm gonna watch the first one, then the second one. If I'm gonna watch a live action Scooby, like you know me and you disagree with this, but I would put on the Lake Monster before this one. But I still love this one a lot. So yeah, it's a smash. What about you, Miller?
I think you're insane for the Lake Monster
No,
comment,
I would.
but I think that this is a very good movie. It's got to be a smash. It can't be anything else. There's so many things about this movie that are so iconic and that can make you miss it. There's enough scenes that if you've not seen this for a few months, you miss the Who's Your Mummy scene, you miss the Faux Ghost scene. There's enough about it that draws you back, even though you've already seen it 20 plus times. I do think, as JB is saying, and I do find it difficult to agree with him sometimes, that there was lots of the time I was watching this, I was like, oh, if I was watching the first one, it'd be better because of this. And I didn't realize just how much I did prefer the first one, but I actually really, really do. But that doesn't mean that this one wasn't brilliant, because it definitely was, and it's a definite smash. So, Dan, what about you? For you, is this movie a smash or a pass?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a smash. I do love this film. When I was younger, I always preferred this one to the first one. I think just because being a big Scooby fan, I loved seeing like the old villains. Now I think maybe I prefer the first one. I think the first one's a bit more iconic, even though they both have these huge like meme moments that Twitter and everyone on social media still love. I think the only issue I have with this film is I think there was a few tweaks they could have made. I wish some different villains had been featured. I wish there'd been sort of like you mentioned earlier, a lunar ghost sort of nod. I think would have been really cool. But overall, it's a fun film. Again, maybe not as iconic as the first one, but it's such a worthy sequel, and it's just fun. It's just a nice hour and a half of fun. If you're a Scooby fan, it is great to see these villains come to life. It's great to see this cast again. So yeah, no, smash from me.
Perfect. And Sophie?
Yeah, definitely a smash. I think I agree. You are comparing it to the first one, obviously the sequel. I'd love for someone to watch the second one first and then the first one and then see how it goes from their perspective. Um, I think I say it's dated, that's fine. I just think because the first one is like timeless, and I think that, and I like that vibe more than the second one. I think for the flaws that it does have, it's only minimal, and I think over it's a really good, enjoyable watch. And I just love this one, definitely the nostalgia compared to the first one. Like for the nostalgia that the first one didn't have, it really packed a punch with this one. So yeah, definitely a smash.
So unanimous smashes across the board, which explains why 20 years later we are still watching this movie. It is amazing and is still so talked about. So, as we said, 20th anniversary. So, by way of, I guess, finishing off this video, JB, I will allow you to do the announcement of our 20th anniversary guest.
Okay, so we have a 20th anniversary guest. It is a returning guest, and it is, of course, drum roll. It is Peter Crosman. Now, the first interview we did with Peter Crosman, we uncovered so many there's so many things that blew my socks off. For instance, the Chickenstein test footage, the Ghost Clown test footage, all of it was just absolutely crazy. And you know what? I think we topped it all with the second one because
Can you believe there's more?
like there's more. And I don't want to spoil it, but let's just say I believe that in terms of you compare runtime, it's a shorter interview because there's may or may not be an extended cut of the interview coming out at some point. But in terms of footage that no one's seen before, I think there's a lot more of it in this second one. I think we very much give Peter Crossman the floor with it. I don't think we ask like more than two questions each, do we, Miller?
No.
Because yeah, I'm just like, do your thing, present.
It was like being in a lecture. It was just like you let the person at the front that has all the knowledge teach you.
So
And
yeah,
we learn.
that is amazing. That'll be out.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. And I'm very happy about it. So yeah, tune in. I'll leave the premiere link in the description down below. But to wrap things up, Dan, where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at danfaz94.
And Sophie, where can people follow your every moves and whereabouts?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Scooby Doo for life.
Oh, that is amazing. I'll leave them linked in the description down below, and you can find me nowhere, probably in tears somewhere, but I'll be watching the 2002 movie while doing it, so life is good. Life is good. Thank you so much to everyone for watching. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and happy 20th anniversary to Scooby Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed.